How's it going, guys? My name is Brett Schwellmeyer, sports editor of the Iowa State Daily.
What's up, guys? Assistant sports editor Pavel Markovic.
I'm Katie Schaefer, sports reporter.
And I'm Ford Griffith, sports reporter.
And this is the Daily Dish Podcast. Yeah, so last week we missed a week, but we're back. Definitely a up and down week in terms of Iowa State basketball on the men's side, but we'll get to that in a minute. Ford and Katie haven't been with us for a little while, so we're going to throw it over to them. We've got a lot of games to cover. We're going to go all the way back to the UConn game and just kind of the Big 12 and how things have been going for the Cyclones. So, guys, take it away.
Yeah, UConn was a long time ago, it feels like, but that game felt a little bit like the South Carolina game where UConn started really hot, and then there was just nothing that the Cyclones could do to really get back into it.
Nope, we lost 68-101, and that's pretty rough. That's a big range.
For sure. And UConn had 3 players with 25 or more points. Ashlyn Shade started the game really hot. She had, I think, it was 15 or 17 points in the first quarter. It was something I had never seen before. So it was a rough game, to say the least.
Yeah, and offensively for us, we just couldn't get it going. We had 25 to 54 for field goals. It was rough for us.
Yeah, most definitely. And then to start non-conference play, following that UConn game, it's a little hard to do that and bounce back. Mm-hmm. So against Oklahoma State, Cyclones came out a little flat. It was on the road. It was a tough one. The Cyclones stayed in it, but lost by 6 to them. So that was another one where it's just kind of deflating to lose the first game of conference play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we do have a repetition of being able to bounce back after really tough losses, but lately it's been getting harder for them.
For sure. And that game, Audie, those first two, or against UConn and against Oklahoma State, it was basically just Audie. It felt like Audie was doing it all. She was trying to basically play herself into a win when we needed another person outside of the starting lineup to really step up and perform well, but they didn't get that.
No. And I saw a little bit from Addie, but again, she's kind of a hit or miss lately too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she did the same thing where she fills the stat sheet, and she played really well, but outside of those two, it's just hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
But like you mentioned, Iowa State has done a good job of bouncing back in games, and against Kansas State, first conference home game, they won by 14 against I'd say solid Kansas team.
Yeah, no, this was a good one. Audie did great, 13 for 18. She carried the team as usual. 3-pointers, that's still kind of a rough patch for us,
Mm-hmm.
but this was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it was a great win. I know Kansas was, I can't totally remember what their record. I think they were 10-3
Mm-hmm.
going into the game, and they didn't shoot the ball particularly well either. I think that's kind of what helped the Cyclones come away with that big of a win. But like you mentioned, Audie, 33 points. It's hard to lose when she plays that well. And Emily Ryan had 19 in that game.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also helpful that we had such a good early start. We had 19, and they only had 13 in the first quarter, and that kind of kept consistent throughout.
For sure. Being able to build a lead in the first quarter, that's something that is very helpful going through that game. And then this is a game where, or I guess the next one against Utah, where Utah was right on the fringe of being ranked. I think they were ranked after this win. Mm-hmm. We lost 67, or Iowa State lost 67-75. That was a tough one.
Yeah, no kidding.
But this is also a game where I remember Coach Fennelly talking after the game, being we desperately need a fourth scorer. We need somebody else to step up. With Kenzie Hare done for the season, she was a true scorer, but outside of Audie, Emily, and Addie, Iowa State needed somebody else to step up badly.
Yeah, and it was a hard loss, but Crooks, she scored her 1,000th career point, which that's great for her, and she's the fastest player to do so. So although it was a loss, we had some great little milestones here and there.
Absolutely, and then that takes us into the trip to Arizona, where people have said that it could be a turning point for the Cyclones, where 2 big wins, and they came back to Ames and then beat Texas Tech, but Let's talk about that trip to Arizona for a minute.
Yeah, Arizona State, we won 90-83, and this was a little. We didn't use our full lineup very well, which I think is good because not every player was performing as top tier as they usually do. But then Ariana Jackson came and performed. Like, she had some great 3-pointers.
For sure. Everybody was contributing offensively. 90 points. That's a lot of points to put up in a game. The Cyclones also shot 38 free throws. Arizona State could not stop fouling. I think they had 25 fouls as a team. 26. Sorry, but late in the game when they needed to try to get their way back into the game, it was like all they could do was foul, it seemed like.
And then moving on to Arizona, we won 79-58, and I think this was a pivotal moment for Sydney Harris. She made the starting lineup for her first time, and she wowed the crowd.
For sure. She had 24 points, 5 threes. It was really refreshing to see that for Iowa State. Being able to have her score 24, be like, oh, we have somebody else that can do that. It was very helpful for them, I think, and Coach finally really acknowledged her in the postgame.
Yeah, and ever since that game, I think she's just been a consistent player and has been such a great help. Like, she's been in the starting lineup for the past couple games.
For sure. She's averaging right around, I think, 8 or 9 points, and having that with some solid three-point shooting, which the Cyclones have struggled with, can't complain about that for sure. And then the Cyclones came back and took on Texas Tech, another win. However, the NCAA record streak of, I believe, 945 games with a three-pointer was broken. The Cyclones didn't hit a three in this game.
No, they had a lot of paint success, which is typical. Audie is great, but we have to get used to using the three-pointers, which Addie mentioned how that's kind of sad that they broke a record, but what works, and that's what worked in that game.
Right. When you can score the ball at that rate, they were 24 for 28 from the free throw line and had 50 points in the paint. So no jump shots, it seemed like. So, like you mentioned, when you can score that well in the paint and beat a team just with layups and shots around the basket, like, why try to veer away from that? Why try to do something else when it works that well?
Right.
And then another slip-up, unfortunately, for the Cyclones. But it was, I'd say, a good loss against number 20 West Virginia. 68-62 on the road, or 82-68, my apologies. On the road, that was a game where it came out flat. First quarter was rough, 30-15 after the first. It's just hard to come back after that quarter.
Right. Emily Ryan was out on illness, and not to blame her in any specific way, but I felt like that loss was just because we didn't have such a strong experience on the court.
For sure. And she plays pretty big as well, and it felt like we lacked size in that game.
Yeah.
So the Cyclones just struggled to get anything going in the paint.
No, it also felt like we were rushing it, and they even talked about, like, post-game, how Emily brings, like, a sense of calmness to the court, and you could tell as soon as she got back in there.
Yeah,
the next
18
game.
assists on the game, and the Cyclones are one of the top assist teams in the country. I'm pretty sure they're top 10, maybe top 5. But without her, it's hard to feed Addie in the paint. So,
Right.
Yeah, that one was tough. And then recently came back to Ames, BYU, and UCF. 2 massive wins against BYU, 82-59. That's just a huge win.
Yep.
BYU couldn't get anything going, and then Audie and Addie really took over in that one.
No, Audie 9-19 in the field goal range, Addie 6-13 in the field goal range. They were both really great. And then our three-pointer still lacked, but I think our free throws really carried that one.
I agree. I think the Cyclones are around, I want to say 70-ish from the free throw line, but it's struggled at times. And 24 for 31. When you can knock down 24 free throws in a game, get 24 points from the charity stripe, that'll help a lot. And Audie and Addie, 24 points, 22 points. Those two, when they're on, and it's really fun to watch them play, see them score at that rate. And Addie, once again, flirting with a triple-double, 22 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. I feel like she's going to get one soon. It feels like every game she's so close, but can't quite get it done.
Oh, she usually the first quarter, she can never really come out super strong. She always like lacks a little bit, and then she can kind of get comfortable. So I think when she just kind of comes in with enough confidence, it's going to be a great night for her.
Yeah. Coach Fennelly has talked about how when she has a tough stretch, it's sometimes a little bit hard for her to build that back up, get going again. But when she does, it's fun to watch. And then most recently, UCF 90-56, another huge win. UCF was really depleted. Their whole a lot of their roster was just gone. It was a little confusing that they didn't have some of those players, but I mean, Iowa State just dominated from the start.
Yeah, they mentioned how in practice it was really they prepared to have their full roster there and everybody there, but what was it, 2 were out on sickness and 1 couldn't make the trip, something like that. And so when they got out there and they weren't playing with who they were supposed to be playing, it just it felt like they quoted it as it felt like practice was wasted.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, however, the way that they were able to adjust, the Cyclones got out to a 13-0 lead. So although the practice was wasted, they were still prepared for the moment for sure.
And this was a great night in so many ways, but I think it was Lily Hansford's night. She went 4 for 7 from the 3-point range. She had a season high of 12 points. It was her night. It was a great night for her.
It was so awesome because I think everybody that has been watching the Cyclones consistently has known she struggled. She's had a really tough time getting anything going, and to be able to see her knock down, I think it was 4 for. She might have been 4 for 4, maybe 4 for 5, but see her knock them down and keep on shooting them, it was really awesome to see her play with confidence.
No, it's great. And then Ariana Jackson went 3 for 6 from the 3-point line, and I think it's so great that we have so much more depth now in the 3-point range.
Yeah, and I think that's something going forward. It's going to be nice to be able to trust putting those players in, that they can score the ball. I mean, who knows, obviously, if Lily will keep it up, but seeing 4 go down in a game, that's got to do something for your confidence. And I think confidence definitely plays a role in how you play and how you practice. So
absolutely.
Hopefully she keeps that up. And, I mean, Audie, it's hard not to mention her name when talking about every game. She had a double-double, 22 points, 11 rebounds. So she's doing her thing for sure.
Yep, same with Addie Brown. She had she made an 11-0 stretch or something early on, so she's doing great.
Yeah, she had a stretch where she had 2 and 1s or something, and it was wraps from there.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I've got a couple questions for you guys. It feels like this team is kind of in a similar boat from last season when Pavel and I were covering the team. They're 6-3 in the conference right now. We're halfway through Big 12 play. How do you feel like this team is stacking up against Big 12 opponents? And I know it still might be a little early, but do you feel like this team is an NCAA tournament team?
Well, I think stacking up against Big 12 opponents, they haven't beaten a team with a Big 12 record over 500.
Yep.
And all their losses are from teams higher than 500. So, I mean, I feel like where they are in the Big 12 right now is where they're going to end up, where they're going to be. So it's hard to compare them to last year and whatever, but I think that if they could pick up a win against a team above 500, that could be really helpful for them.
Yeah, I think if they win against a couple of the teams that they're heading up against now, I feel like that's going to be a really big statement piece for them.
But your question about March Madness, they were right on the bubble. I've been looking at the bracketology. The latest one has them playing Iowa.
Really?
And so that would be that'd be absurd. That'd be the craziest first matchup. But I think they'll need to pick up a win over a team they're not favored against to get in.
Yeah. Could be a big upset in one of their next 2 games, which we'll get into in a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. So we'll kind of dive into the men's side now. We'll start with the unfortunate game that was the West Virginia game. But going into this one, it was a bit of a long shot, I'd say. I know that Darren DeVries is in his first year as head coach of West Virginia, but this team I felt like early in the season was one of the more underrated teams in the country, really. And I think it showed in this one. Iowa State entered this game having not won in West Virginia in 10 years. So obviously it's a tough place to play. It's one of the better environments in the Big 12. And unfortunately for the Cyclones, this ended up being their first Big 12 loss of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to happen eventually, and I expected it to be on the road. I honestly didn't expect if we weren't going to lose to Kansas and we'll talk about Arizona later, but I honestly don't think they're going to lose at Hilton at all, especially now with the students back, and it's probably going to be a packed house every night. I know, some of these away losses kind of hurt, but at the same time, like, it's never going to be perfect. They were never going to have a perfect season anyways. But, yeah, this West Virginia game was just very hard to watch. I mean, even for not even just Iowa State, for both teams, like, nobody was making anything throughout the whole game. It was very neck and neck just because they were able to get a little here, a little there. I mean, the first half ended 25-24 in favor of West Virginia, and it was so back and forth just because of the fact that each team couldn't get a bucket to go until – I feel like it was really the last 2 minutes of the second half against West Virginia that really turned the tide for the Mountaineers, which obviously Javon Small is shown to be that kind of guy. He's a superstar in the making for sure, scoring 27, leading both teams in scoring, which is amazing to see. He didn't really do well, and I guess no one really did well from three-pointers, which we'll talk about Iowa State, 1 for 17. Yeah. Only one being Curtis Jones, and, I mean, to be fair, it's not surprising that he's the only one who actually made one because he's usually like the three-point guy. I mean, I know when Milan plays, he becomes one to be able to stretch the floor, but this one, no one was making anything. I mean, they went 9 for 27 from three, but Javon Small did it. He was basically looking like Keyshawn Gilbert out there. He's like a lot of slashing, he's very fast, and obviously made all 7 of his 7 free throws and was 9 for 16 from the field in general. And, yeah, he's just a really good player, and that's what kind of did them in. It's just like those key misses, like they weren't just able to get anything going, like especially from beyond the arc, which is the main problem.
Yeah, I know the game felt defensive, but to be honest, it was just that no one could really make shots for the longest time. And I don't really remember the last time seeing a game for Iowa State. Maybe it was Houston last year, but where both teams scored just in the 20s in the first half. I don't know. It was just a really weird off performance. And looking at kind of the schedule and how things kind of shaped up, it felt like it probably would have been this game, and it was. And games like those happen. I just felt like maybe it was a good thing for the Cyclones to have this loss, to say, like, okay, what did we do wrong? What can we do to right that? And it felt like they did in the next game after that, which we'll get into in a little bit. But, again, yeah, Curtis Jones, I like that he kept shooting. 1 for 6 only, but the fact that he's still confident in his shot. They weren't really falling. He finally did get one to go. And if anyone is going to make a 3 in a game, it's going to be Curtis Jones.
Yeah, if you got anyone, even when Milan comes back, like you have one guy that needs to make a deep shot for you, it's going to be Curtis Jones, no doubt about it. Whether he starts or comes off the bench, he is that type of guy. And, yeah, like you said, like he just has that confidence in him to just keep shooting no matter if he keeps seeing the miss. Like we'll talk about that in the Arizona game, even though that didn't really fix itself, which is kind of I'd say it played a little bit of part in their demise, but still, we'll talk about that later. But Curtis Jones, I like what he's doing now because I feel like earlier in the season he was mainly focused on more outside shooting. Now he's kind of developed more of like a floater shot, which he's, I think, done really well. He gets just the right touch on it to get it to swish in the basket every time, and it's perfect. He just tosses it up there, and you just think majority, like I feel like 9 times out of 10, as soon as he puts up that patented floater, I feel like it's going to go in.
I feel like a big other part of this game was just the sheer physicality of it. I mean, the officials were just letting him play. And that kind of showed up in the free throws, too. Iowa State shot, I believe, a season-low 7 free throws only. And when you're only shooting that many free throws, that kind of does you in. Not really getting to the line. That's kind of something that Iowa State has thrived on a little bit, especially when you look at guys like Taman Lipsey, like Joshua Jefferson. I feel like those two have been the best from the free throw line for Iowa State. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, Jefferson made his 2 that he shot. Taman didn't go to the line once, which is something that I thought was a little shocking, considering how he drives, how he plays offense. He's willing to take contact, and we've seen that many times. He played with an injured thumb that he mentioned in this game. It's probably kind of affected him in the past couple games. But I think that aspect of it, of just not really, either fouls weren't getting called or they just weren't driving like they used to, I think that was really just a big part of it, just not shooting free throws, really.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I like when the refs let them play a little bit. You gotta have a little bit of physicality in there, because if you have too many ref calls, like, what are we doing? We're just watching the game. It's like you basically expecting a whistle to be blown every possession for each team. So I kind of did like how the refs did let them play a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, there's probably some, I can't really remember, it's been that long ago where we watched the game, but probably was some fouls that maybe could have been called, but still at the same time, like, it's mainly just the shooting from outside, not even talking about the free throw line that really dug them in. And give credit to West Virginia, they're a really good team. Like you said, Darian DeVries, coming in from Drake, which I know you're a big fan of them, but yeah, coming in his first year, and then obviously they were missing Tucker DeVries, one of their best players too, again, because he's been out for a while, but still they showed they were still be able to play with among the best with Javon Small leading the way, and their fans were rowdy, man. Like I know, like when I made football predictions when we did Sports Weekly and stuff, I predicted us to lose at West Virginia, which I mean
didn't happen.
No, I'm glad it didn't happen, to be fair, but I mean you couldn't really blame me because their fans are like among the best in the country. Like they're very passionate fan base, and it showed obviously when they did play West Virginia. Obviously they crashed the court when they beat us, which is very fair because you take down a top 2 team, which made number 2, which highest ranking in program history, which is amazing, but can never reach that number 1 threshold because we lost to Auburn. But that's neither here nor there right now. But yeah, just like just kind of wrapping up this game, just really poor shooting night. It did obviously fix itself here in the next game, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, I think this is really just like a check for them type of thing.
Right. Yeah. But so Iowa State scores a season low 57 in that game. One game later, a season-high 108 points against UCF in a huge, just demolishing 108-83 win. This one really just kind of felt like no contest. I mean, Iowa State was just the aggressor the entire night. This game, they shot 25 free throws, so a stark difference from the West Virginia game, made 19 of them. They still shot a lot of three-pointers. They shot over 40% from three, 9 for 22. Leading the way was actually Joshua Jefferson, which I thought was a nice surprise, and he had a very big night for himself too.
Yeah, how about Joshua Jefferson? We keep talking about him. Obviously, he's probably the transfer of the year. Going to be the pickup of the year, like I would say anywhere.
Big 12
honestly.
newcomer of the year for
Big
sure.
12 newcomer for sure. I mean, I could see a case for just the country itself.
True.
I mean, I'm not really too knowledgeable of who else. I mean, really, but still, that's neither here nor there. But still, like, set a career high in points, 30 of them. It's very good to see.
Yeah. First Iowa State player this season to reach 30 points.
Thought it'd be Curtis Jones, but I guess not. But we'll take it with Joshua Jefferson. He's that kind of player. 9 for 14 shooting from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and then hit 9 free throws out of 12 attempts, along with having 7 rebounds, 4 of which are offensive. And then, 4 steals, actually led the team in that stat too, which is really amazing to see.
Yeah, Nate Heisey also with 4 steals as well in his 19 minutes of play. It just felt like everyone was in this game. I mean, TJ put in the subs there at the end. He had JT Rock, Cade Kelderman, and Caden Fish in the game at the end, it's always cool when those guys get to play. Demarion Watson also had some big minutes as well, 11 points in 11 minutes with 5 rebounds. I thought that he was a crucial piece off the bench. Same with Heisey. Those two guys, the energy that they can play with and just kind of come in and just provide relief, I think it speaks volumes to just the depth of this team.
100%. Like, I know, kind of talked about my takeaways about Watson and Heisey coming off the bench being so integral in this win, but still, like you said, like, I wish we saw Watson more during non-conference play. I know Milan has been playing majority of it, but at least he should have gotten some minutes. There's got to be some minutes you could dish out to him because he's shown to be a good player. I mean, obviously, I feel like he's kind of Heisey. He doesn't really shoot a lot, or even when he does, I mean, doesn't really got a lot of points, I'll say. But he has made his difference on the defensive side, which is what TJ's brand of basketball is. So, like you said, his size and just both of them actually, just amazing on the defensive end. They've just proven to be like key bench pieces for this team that's got high aspirations.
Yep. There was a moment where Heisey was wide open to shoot a 3. They dished it out to him. Everyone's screaming at him to shoot it, and he passes the ball. Crowd goes silent. Ball comes back to him. He shoots it, drains it. It was his only made 3 of the night, but it was the first one he made since like December 20th or something like that against Morgan State. So it had been a while since he had made a 3 before that game. I know that TJ was talking a lot about the guys. Everyone still had confidence in him, and it showed, I think, in that moment of, Heisey, shoot the ball. We trust you. And when he did that and it went in, I think that was just a big moment for his confidence in himself too.
Yeah, we saw like he did with when he was at Northern Iowa. He's such a big piece for them, at least scoring-wise too, not just what he does defensively. And it's just a wonder why he doesn't really shoot as much as he does. Like, he's got to like regain his confidence back in his shooting form. I know Joshua Jefferson says he shoots a lot in practice. He gets to put up a lot of shots, and so does Coach Otzelberger. So I feel like you just need to see him more shoot the ball more than just, dishing it on, trying to be a facilitator, because he's shown before that he can make him. Just got to get confidence in his shot, and he can be a big-time player for this team on the bench, just scoring-wise.
Yeah. Again, just a dominating win. Definitely a breath of fresh air after that West Virginia loss. Then Iowa State went on a bit of a road trip after that, went out down to Arizona, played both the Arizona schools in back-to-back games. Started with a comeback win over Arizona State, 76-61 after trailing by 7 points at halftime, and just really came out firing in the second half. This one was a very just all-around amazing comeback win. It's what championship-level teams do, win games like these on the road. And it was Curtis Jones, once again, who kind of led the way.
The Curtis Jones show, back-to-back, not conveniently back-to-back games was 30-plus point scores, even though we didn't have one all season. So
yeah.
I wonder where this stretch came from. But, it's nice to see, obviously, Curtis Jones. We've just been waiting for him to finally get that 30-point mark at this point because he's such a good shooter. Like, he played a team-high 40 minutes in this game. I don't even think he sat down once during the game.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, and, he just, he showed it out there. He didn't look like he was, tired at all. He looked like he was just playing his butt off, and he just continued to show, 33 points on 40 minutes, 10 of 22 shooting, 5 or 10 from three-pointers, and then had 8 free throws. And, still got 7 rebounds and 3 steals in his 40 minutes. So he's just doing him, and the rest of the team just let him cook.
Yep. Joshua Jefferson also cooked again, another double-double for him, 13 points, 10 rebounds, all on the defensive end. And again, he's still got 4 steals. And again, that just probably speaks to the type of player that he is. We talk about it all the time of him being a Swiss Army knife. And again, it just feels like TJ just found a gem in the portal with Joshua Jefferson. TJ's talked about it a lot this season too, that he knew Joshua before he came to Iowa State. And he was kind of a guy that he kind of had his eye on. And I think that Joshua, the way that he plays for this team and with his teammates, I think that without him, I don't know if Iowa State is where they are right now. I think that he's been just the piece that kind of just brings everybody together. He can do it all.
Yeah, he's literally the glue that holds this team together, like you said. There's no one else I'd rely upon, just an overall player. I know we talk about Curtis Jones, obviously the best scorer on this team, but if you need someone to do a little bit of everything, that's Joshua Jefferson. And just seeing what he does now, and if he continues to do what he does, I know he's only a junior right now. Next year, what he does, which hopefully he does stay with Iowa State. But
I know there's a lot of fans that are excited about that too. I mean, people talk about it all the time. Remember, Joshua Jefferson is only a junior.
Yeah.
If he decides to come back, that would be a huge benefit for this team.
100%. And I know this guy has got NBA talent written all over him too when he does decide to leave for the draft. And but yeah, he's one of a kind player type of thing. You don't usually see, especially at his size, which I just keep saying it's amazing me. What his size, what he's able to do. He's able to do everything. It's just insane. But going back into this game, what really helped Iowa State was drawing fouls. I mean, Arizona State's superstar freshman, who I didn't realize was 17 years old, scored 9 points in only 17 minutes because he fouled out. He got a lot of fouls early on in the game, but then eventually ended up fouling out, which and then along with another bench guy had fouled out. So it's really what helped Iowa State gain momentum was Arizona State losing those key pieces down the stretch.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing that helped Iowa State too was that they didn't really get a whole lot of fouls. All the big guys for Iowa State were there at 3. Nate Heisey had the most for Iowa State foul-wise with 4. So I think that they kind of managed things better than Arizona State did. And ultimately, that's what it really came down to. And this, again, felt like a few games prior that we've had to, especially the Iowa game. This one, I felt those two very similarly, mirrored each other kind of. Iowa controlled the first 35 minutes. Then Iowa State turns it on, wins the game by 9. Arizona State controlled the first 35 minutes. Then Iowa State turns it on and wins by 15. So that ability for Iowa State, they're down on the road. The fact that they can kind of come together in those waning moments, turn the momentum in their favor, and pull out a multi-possession win, it's just, again, speaks volumes of what this team is capable of. Just imagine what they can do if they do come together and play a full 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like UCF was the closest we got to that.
Yeah, and I think even they said post-game too, it was the closest thing they've ever gone to perfect 40 minutes, but they still gave up 83 points to the night. So it wasn't a perfect thing, obviously, but I'm just waiting for one of these games that could come this Saturday against Kansas State. Home game. They're going to come off an angry loss to Arizona, which we'll talk here in a little bit. Then all the hype, Hilton's Coliseum is going to be bumping, and that could be just another game like UCF. Because that first game against UCF is when the students officially came back for the spring semester. So second game, I know the students here love Jerome Tang over there. But, it's going to be an exciting one for that. But, no, sticking on this right now, like you said, if Iowa State can play, how they've played so far. I mean, obviously you don't want to keep it this close so far, but you want to be able to pull ahead and keep that lead. It's kind of the key to success here. But talking about this Arizona State game specifically, I know what they're trying to targeting to do with their students and having the football team, they'd be there with the Big 12 championship trophy,
Yep.
celebrating at halftime. Like, I know there's a lot of Iowa State fans there that traveled to the desert for not just the Arizona State game, but for the Arizona game too. But yeah, that one gave the team. I know what Curtis Jones said post game, like when they saw them like boasting the trophy to all the Iowa State fans there because they beat them in the Big 12 championship game, gave a little fire into them. And Curtis Jones took it personally, which thank you, Curtis, for doing. We do not take Arizona State lightly anymore. But yeah, I was just glad that they were able to pull ahead and really shut them up.
Yeah. I mean, they were chanting, "Where's your trophy?" We kind of got one.
Yeah.
Looks like a toaster.
Yeah, it actually makes food.
Yeah.
Or heats
It actually
up,
serves
I
a
guess.
purpose. It doesn't just sit there.
Yeah. Yours is
I like our
smaller,
trophy.
Where's our bigger?
I like our trophy.
Yeah. You guys
Yeah.
couldn't beat the horns anyways, so, that's not here or there.
Yeah. Well, after that, Iowa State, another loss on the road at Arizona, part of this road trip. This one was just a weird game. It felt like it didn't really feel like either team was doing well at all. It just kind of felt like sloppy basketball. Just, I don't know. It didn't feel normal. It was just a wild, physical, Big 12 type game. I like the brand of basketball that Arizona's brought to the Big 12. I think they're a really good team. Very underrated to begin the year, but it's just because they played a gauntlet of a schedule. And the fact that they're 8-1 in the conference, I feel like they've really caught on. They're definitely someone to watch out for when it comes tournament time.
Oh, yeah, they're a very exciting team, obviously led by Caleb Love, which
he had a night.
He did have a night, yeah. I mean, majority of the night he didn't, but the end of the night he capped it off. And, I mean, this game really just started with, I know what your column talked about, a 9:30 start time.
Yeah,
so,
ridiculous.
I know all the fans out there love watching a 9:30 start time game and ending near the new day by midnight. So, yeah, that was already putting us in a sour mood but going into this. But, it would have been nice to make things a little nicer to go to sleep knowing that, or waking up the next morning if you already went to sleep by halftime, to wake up seeing that they won. And, it was a back-and-forth game like I talked about the West Virginia game, but I feel like one thing that really set the tone for Arizona, not Arizona State, was they went on a 16-0 run.
They did.
That was the nail in the coffin, or not the nail in the coffin, the overtime was, but that really helped them build momentum into what was going to happen, because obviously look at the first half, Arizona went into halftime leading by 4, but then Iowa State turned it up and then tied or outscored them by 4 more points. Yeah, took the lead, outscored them by 4 more points, but it was Love biting the Cyclones.
Yeah, I mean, for Caleb Love to miss 3 after 3 after 3 all game, and then make the luckiest shot from 53 feet to send it to overtime. In that moment, I was kind of like, okay, this game's over. Arizona's winning this game. Caleb Love made that shot, crowd's into it. It's at Arizona. There's no way Iowa State wins this game. But I will say the fact that Iowa State – well, okay, so the end of that game, I'm not going to argue with what TJ did at all. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he knows way more than I do when it comes to that sort of thing. But I'm just wondering, again, it's maybe like a what-if scenario. Say Josh still misses that first shot. Mm-hmm. What would happen if they missed, or if he missed the second free throw? What do you do then? Do you purposefully miss it and just kind of let Arizona not inbound the ball? I know if they make a 3 at that point, they just win the game. But I think maybe allowing them to inbound the ball, set up a play, that might have helped Caleb Love make that shot. I'm wondering if it was just a frazzled, grab the ball and we have to go right now, instead of we have 5 seconds to draw up a play, inbound it, and then shoot it type of thing.
I'm just all basing this on luck, man. There's no
I know
way.
that's all it was.
I know
it
helps
luck.
drop the play, which you think they would push it down the court and try and get a closer 3, but Caleb Love just said to hell with it, and then just tucked it up there and obviously hit it, and I was just stunned, man. I don't know what else to say. You can't blame him for that, man. That's just I know obviously things could have happened, made free throws here, made free throws there, but that just happens in every game, Right. Obviously nobody's perfect from the free throw line, no matter how many you take, so no matter how much you want it to be either. So but yeah, I mean, yeah, that half court shot literally shifted the whole momentum. Like, I know Iowa State did start off the scoring a little bit in that overtime period, but it didn't matter. I mean, they scored four whole points in that overtime period, and then Arizona finished on an 11-0 run, which is just full of threes. The crowd was hyped into it, and that just put the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough finish, but that's just part of it, I guess. Just overtime basketball on the road is just not where you want to, not a situation you want to be in. Now, I remember last season, Iowa State lost in sort of similar fashion on a buzzer beater half-court shot at Baylor last season. Milan puts it up from half-court, like 2/10 of a second too late. Ball goes in. Doesn't count, though, because didn't release it in time. And then Iowa State gives up this half-court shot, loses in overtime. Those are just two tough losses that Iowa State has had when it comes to just half-court shots in the past couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, that's that. Just, I'm sure there's unluckier teams out there that have had to deal with longer shots, and they probably made more of them. But, it just stings for this Iowa State team. Like, you had it right there, man. And it's just kind of like, let it slip. And, kind of going into this game, we didn't really expect to – I'd expect, at least, didn't really expect to win this game because over there they were having a whiteout, and – just like West Virginia, it's hard to play over there, even if they're new to the conference. So, they're going to come out with a little flame in them just because they're playing a new team, top 3 ranked team too, of course. So, they just put it up at the right time. Obviously, one of their big pieces was Toby Awaka. Played 29 minutes, did not miss a single shot, went 6 for 6, had a 17-point, 12-rebound double-double. And it seemed like at times he just was in the perfect place at the perfect time to get offensive rebounds, which he had 4 in this game. So. But then also talking to the other side, Iowa State's big man, Deshaun Jackson, getting a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, with 6 of his rebounds coming from the offensive board, which was nice to see from Big Dog.
It was, yeah. I think this was his first double-double of the season. And again, it just felt like it was a matter of time before it would happen. He's been really solid at getting the rebounds. Him and Joshua Jefferson, those two kind of go hand in hand with that sort of thing. And I like that he was able to get his buckets to fall this game, it felt like. Because the past few ones, it felt like they hadn't really been falling in his favor. So I think that this was just a big confidence booster for him in terms of his play specifically, with getting that done finally, that double-double. So it's good that Joshua keeps on having those, like, basically almost every night, it seems like. But now that Jackson is starting to get there, I think it's just going to do even more for this team going forward.
Yeah, and then obviously Joshua had 15 points, didn't really have the rebounds, four rebounds, didn't steal. So, I mean, it's kind of
led an assist, though, with 4.
He did, yeah. So he just does a little bit of everything, like
right.
Just besides points. Like, it's just very interesting to see. But the one guy who did make his name for himself was Taman Lipsey in that first half. I mean, I think he had like 12 or 14 of his points in the first half alone. He was draining him from 3. I know he finished 3 for 7, but still made 3 threes. And it showed he had a little bit of confidence in his shot in the first half.
Yeah, I liked what I saw out of Taman in the first half. He was really the one that kind of kept the Cyclones in the game, It felt like. I mean, just no one was really kind of doing a whole lot out there. Taman was the one that was providing that spark on offense. But then in the second half, it just – Iowa State did outscore Arizona, but Taman kind of took a back seat, it felt like, on the offensive side. But ultimately just not enough in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Keyshawn did kind of turn up in the second half, which kind of helped lead Iowa State to have the lead towards the end of the second half, but it didn't matter there. But got to talk about Curtis Jones, man. Oh my, like we talked about him, like just keep shooting, like to have that confidence, but nothing was going. Like every time he had like somewhat of an open shot, just not going in. I know Arizona did play good defense on him, to be fair.
You have
I heard, yeah, of course, he's one of the best scorers in the country, and I heard on the post-game ESPN, like Caleb Love was talking about like how they knew going into it, like how they were going to have to defend Curtis Jones for them to succeed, and it did work. Had a total of 8 points, 6 of them coming from the free throw line, and went abysmal 0 for 8 from 3, which is very unfortunate to see, and then 1 for 11 from just normal range. And the one basket he made was from one of his patent floater shots, but was a goaltend, so didn't really even go in the basket. Just was too late for the guy to block it, and got the points from it. But either way, like he did not see the ball go through the hoop aside from the free throw line.
Yeah, this is, I think, the only game that he hasn't made a 3 yet in a game this season.
Yeah.
So
that in Omaha, actually, where he had 9 points, so he 0 for 5, but twice.
Well, first conference game where he didn't make a 3. But yeah, just another off night for him, but he'll get it righted for the next game. Yeah. I'm sure of it. But again, just a tough loss, but yeah, I think that they've got a bounce back win coming up.
Yeah, no.
the women's team takes on Kansas State and TCU this upcoming week. Two top 15 opponents. It gets really tough. I mean, picking up one of these wins would be huge for the Cyclones. They start off with Kansas State, but Ayoka Lee, the Wildcats' leading scorer, is out with a fractured foot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great for us. That's definitely going to be a little bit of a booster. She had a field goal percentage of 65%. And not saying that when we change up our rotations, we don't have a lot of structure when people go in for Audie. However, this team kind of does. They have Kennedy Taylor, who's shooting 50% from field goal range. Same with Eliza Maupin or something, who's doing 64%. So even though their lead scorer is out, they still have potential.
Yeah, and Coach Fennelly today talked about how Kennedy Taylor, although she isn't as tall as Ayoka Lee, she is very athletic, and that's one thing that Audie has kind of struggled with, being guarded by really athletic players. We saw it against Iowa with Hannah Stolke, but, I mean, with Ayoka Lee out, Kansas State will have to shift their whole defense from their next biggest player guarding Audie, and then after that guarding Addie. So I think it could be a big game for Addie.
No, for sure. And Kansas State is already kind of a difficult team as a whole. They're leading the Big 12 in many things, including blocks and rebounds and field goals. So this is definitely going to be a big challenge offensively for them.
Yeah, for sure. And last season, when Kansas State was still favored against the Cyclones swept the Wildcats last year. And in both games, Addie Brown, as a freshman, was the leading scorer. So with Ayoka Lee out, I really do think that this could be a big Addie Brown game. If she can get going early, get some points the first quarter, first half, just build that confidence up, I mean, it's a long shot, but I think the Cyclones could keep themselves in the game.
No, I completely agree. And even if we do end up losing, it's going to be close.
Yeah. However, I agree with you, but seeing how the Cyclones have played against top 5 or top 10 opponents earlier this year, it's hard to not think about those games when looking at this one. They're number 11 in the country, so I mean, if they don't have a super slow start like they did against South Carolina, like they did against UConn, then I think they'll play a close loss and, I mean, give themselves a little bit of a shot, but it'll be tough.
Yeah, they've made it a priority to come in stronger. That's what they did about their past game. That was one of their main focuses. So I think they're going to have to channel that going forward.
For sure. And then one last big thing that the Cyclones will have to focus on is Serena Sundell, their Kansas State's point guard, who has really been filling the stat sheet. She has 5 double-doubles on the season. Maybe she's a forward. I could be mistaken there. But she has 5 double-doubles and 1 triple-double on the season. Kind of plays a similar brand that Addie Brown plays with filling the stat sheet. But Coach Fennelly talked about how defense will really need to be keyed in on her.
Yep, so that's going to mainly focus on Ariana Jackson, who we've seen great things from previously, but she's also just going to need to step it up.
For sure. And she's going to need some help from other players also, stepping in the lanes.
Yep.
And then the next game gets arguably even tougher.
Yes.
Number 9 TCU, 20-2 record. They are led by Sedona Prince, who's nearly averaging a double-double with 18 points per game, and they have Haley Van Lith also scoring, I think, 16 points per game.
Yeah, Crooks is going to need to get used to the big heights and the bigger players right there.
For sure. I mean, like I mentioned before, Audie has struggled a little bit with taller players guarding her, over 6'5", whatever. Sedona Prince is 6'7", so it'll be a tough matchup for her. I mean, she doesn't back down from matchups, I'd say. So hopefully she's able to take that with just a little bit of a chip on her shoulder and try to prove herself as one of those top players also.
Yeah, what I see a lot of from her is that when she's up against those tough players, she misses a lot of the easy shots, but kind of goes more in depth with the harder shots. So I think we're gonna have to work on our easier shots, like free throws and like things like that.
Yeah, she's really gonna need to knock down free throws. She's done a good job of getting to the free throw line, but earlier in the season, like against Iowa, she struggled from the free throw line, and that was a game that came down in the final minutes. So knocking down those shots early and continuing to knock them down will be big for this one. Another one where it's like, if they start fast, then they can stay in the game. But if they don't, then it could get out of hand really quickly.
No, when they're stuck chasing, it's going to end up in a loss.
Yeah, and although it doesn't impact the game directly, Haley Van Lith is pretty popular on social media, has over 1 million followers, so I'm hoping that Hilton can be packed for that one and get all the students cheering the Cyclones on against the Horned Frogs. And then the final game of this week is against Cincinnati, who isn't quite as good as those two opponents. They are 13-6, right below the Cyclones in the Big 12 standings. What do you think about that game?
I think Cincinnati really lacks offensively. But they've had such a close game against K-State, which is making me a little curious about how our game is going to go up against K-State. However, the Cyclones, they do make a lot of mistakes. And I'm predicting, I have a good feeling about this game. I feel like we have potential to win, but we make so many mistakes. And we're not super great defensively sometimes. So this could be a game where we completely botch it.
For sure. I mean, I feel like a broken record here just saying it again, but they need to start fast. They really need to start fast because, like you said, with all the turnovers, mistakes that the Cyclones tend to make in games like this against average teams, like above average teams, I guess I'd say, because they're 13-6. So as long as they start fast, limit the mistakes, this should be a win at Cincinnati, but on the road, it's always tough to win Big 12 games, so that would be a tough environment, I guess.
Yeah, they usually struggle not on home court.
Yeah, but that's one where if it goes the way that it's looking, where the Cyclones drop the next two against Kansas State and TCU, obviously it'd be nice if they could pick one up. But if they drop those two, this would be a very, very crucial game in their odds of making the tournament.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll jump over back to the men's side now. They just played both the Arizona schools. Now they'll get both of the Kansas schools, and that starts with Kansas State. This one's going to be in Ames, and I think we all remember what happened last time Kansas State came to Ames.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'll kind of touch on it a little bit when we're talking about the games that already happened, but this one will be a fun one because many factors. Obviously, Iowa State fans and their love for Jerome Tang. Kansas State, in general, they've struggled this season to say the least. I mean, they haven't won a true road game this season yet. They're 8-11 overall. I know they're playing Oklahoma State right now, and they're beating them by like nearly 25, but they're hosting them too. And Oklahoma State is also not that good of a team this year. But and then obviously. Back at home, of course, which is the main part. The fans, the students have been waiting to get loud again at Hilton Coliseum. It's just going to be a rowdy environment for Kansas State, who hasn't even run a road game yet. I don't expect it to start this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State, just kind of looking throughout their schedule, they've lost to Drake, which was a good game for Drake.
Yeah.
That game was really good overall, though. But after that, they started Big 12 play with a win against Cincinnati at home, so that was a big one. Cincinnati was ranked in that one. But after that, 6 straight Big 12 losses before finally beating West Virginia by 13. So a good win for Kansas State in its last win. It had been a while for them, but again, just a good win for them right there. I don't expect Iowa State to lose this game, though. There's just really no world where I see the Cyclones losing. 93% chance to win this one. It's pretty high. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But when you look at Kansas State, they've got 3 scorers over 10 points, and one of them is kind of a familiar face from last season for Iowa State, and that's Coleman Hawkins, who played for Illinois. He was a crucial part of Illinois' win in the Sweet 16 last year, made just a ton of threes, and he was a guy that Jerome Tang just kind of, focused in on in the portal, made sure to get him, and he's been a really solid addition to their team, I'll say.
Yeah, and I know I talked about this with you, but I don't understand how they list him as a guard, even though he's 6'10". But
shoots the 3.
Yeah, I guess he's been kind of an integral part to their team. I guess you could say, because he's kind of done a little bit of everything, kind of like Joshua Jefferson has. But main stat I'm looking at right now is his free throws, 57%. If he gets to the line, he's not going to really make a lot. Like You seen even with Kansas when they came to Ames, like I think it was DeJuan Harris who struggled when he went to the free throw line.
Yeah.
But I expect much of the same, not just for him, but the whole Kansas State team. And then David and Gesson obviously leading the team only with 12.7 points per game, but shooting it very well. It's 64% from the field, which is really nice to see. Obviously, not from 3-pointers, 27%, but he's kind of just like that, inside the perimeter type of guy, and you kind of expect him to get a little bit in there. You kind of expect him to kind of score a little bit, but then, yeah, I mean, Kansas State is just unfortunately next on Iowa State's schedule after what had just happened in the desert, and there's too many factors that are in Iowa State's favor right now for them to lose this game. I mean, if they did, I don't even know what to say, honestly. Like, the downfall has begun.
Yeah. Quick little note about David and Gesson again. 64% shooter from the field. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely going to be the guy that Iowa State's going to have to shut down in this one. But, yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it's just – it really feels like this is going to be the game where just like we saw when Iowa State lost to West Virginia and then just blew the doors off UCF. Iowa State just lost a road game to Arizona. They're probably going to blow the doors off of Kansas State. Granted, Kansas State has, they got that win over West Virginia. They're probably going to beat Oklahoma State tonight. So they've got a bit of a rhythm. They're going to enter Hilton with a 2-game winning streak, it looks like, but that's probably going to come to a quick crash and burn type of ending. I would assume that in this one, Curtis Jones is going to get back onto his, 3-point stretch. He'll make at least one, I would hope.
Yeah.
If not, that's a problem.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to get a little hot streak going right here. I mean, this is kind of his bounce-back game, and I think it's perfect fashion, too. You're doing it at home, obviously, doing it against a not great team in Kansas State, but they've proven, obviously, like you said, beating West Virginia. And they did beat Cincinnati when they were ranked at home to start off conference play, but then obviously fell off a cliff after that with 6 straight losses. But, for him, and, I kind of want to see more of the Demarion and Nate Heisey show off the bench, like you saw what they did against UCF. I hope they replicate it or do even better. Like, they scored 108 against UCF. I hope they score 125 against Kansas State, but that probably won't happen because that kind of scoring night was just like, that seemed like everything went perfectly. But even then, I feel like when they do play Kansas State Saturday, I don't think it'll be as perfect as that, but I think it'll be a comfortable win for them. And their main focus will be in a quick turnaround than when they head to Lawrence in a rematch against the Jayhawks.
Yeah, that one's kind of the one that I feel like everyone's kind of circling on their calendars. Iowa State beat Kansas, pretty handily, it felt like, in Hilton Coliseum when they faced the first time this season. This time, though, Allen Fieldhouse is one of the toughest places to play in the country. I think it's the toughest place to play in the Big 12, probably. Kansas is favored to win this one, 60% chance to win. They're currently 15-5 overall, 6-3 in the Big 12 conference. And they did have a tough loss against Houston the other day, but Houston's the best team in the Big 12, and I felt like they're a team that's been very underrated, very underappreciated this season. Just I felt like they were way too low in the rankings. Not that the rankings really mean anything right now, but again, just a tough loss for Kansas. But they rebounded with a win over UCF, which nearly was a loss at home, which is a little surprising. They're going to play Baylor on looks like Thursday, I believe, before.
Yeah, at Baylor at Waco before they play.
Oh, that's Saturday.
Saturday.
My bad.
Same day as when we play Kansas State, yeah.
That's a tough game to have at Baylor. That's a tough one. Just before hosting a team like Iowa State, who you already lost to. Tough draw for the Jayhawks right there.
And it seems like they just struggled really at times to just get a flow going. I know they kind of pull ahead late. Obviously, the score kind of deceives them. Like, even in the most recent game against UCF, they only beat them by 4 points at home. Right. And I know they crushed them in Orlando by 50-plus, but still, I guess you're playing a familiar opponent. They kind of got used to how Kansas played, but still, playing it in a packed Allen Fieldhouse and only win by 4 points is kind of a question mark right there. I kind of think that bled over from that Houston loss where they had the win in hand, but they choked it away just like the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know what's going on with this team, honestly. They just don't seem like the normal Bill Self Kansas team, as dominant as they are. They're just hanging around right there right now, and it's kind of showing in their Big 12 record. They're 6-3. What are they fifth place right now?
Yep. So they wouldn't even get a double bye right now in the Big 12 tournament.
They would be playing first round probably against, I don't know,
second round,
but still not getting a double bye like you said.
Yeah.
You expected Hunter Dickinson to get going, which he kind of has, but still the rest of the team, I know they lost KJ Adams from that Iowa State game last time. I'm not sure if he'll play this time around, but still, like, it's going to be a ruckus environment. It's going to be like Arizona for me. I feel like it's going to probably be closer, I'd feel like, just because of the momentum going into it for Iowa State, because of probably the handling they'll do against Kansas State at home. But
Right.
I'm not going to be surprised if we lose this one, honestly, just because of where they're playing at. But then again, they can do it, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's tough to win on the road, and it's even tougher to beat a team twice in the same season, and that's kind of the pickle that Iowa State is based on when this game is. But the thing that kind of makes me question on if Kansas will win this game is kind of their record and I guess play against ranked opponents. They had to come from behind. I think it was against North Carolina in that game this season. They won by 3. Then they beat Duke by 3. Both of those games were at home for Kansas. And then when they played ranked Big 12 teams, they lost to West Virginia. I believe West Virginia got ranked after that game. They lost to Iowa State, and they lost to Houston. And now they're going to play Baylor, a team that has been ranked this season, on the road, before playing Iowa State, who is still in the top 3. So I don't know. I don't really trust Kansas when it comes to playing these top-tier opponents as of right now. But I think just because they've seen the Cyclones before, this game's at home for them. It's going to be close, like you're saying. But, yeah, I do feel like Kansas pulls out a close win in this one.
Yeah, and I know it's going to hurt, too. Like, you think with everything they've done. Like, I know when going into the season, this game was going to be already tough to win. I'd say that at Arizona and at Houston were probably the toughest 3 games you'd play in. And I guess West Virginia would kind of be thrown in that mix as well right after. But, it's just really coming down to if they can handle the pressure like they did. Every road game seems like for Iowa State, they've struggled at times. But, it's just going to come down to if they can handle the pressure, if they're able to find new ways to beat Kansas, because they know what you're going to throw at them. You got to find ways for other people to get going, because they're going to expect that, and as well as being able to handle what Kansas has already done to you.
Right.
Because they're going to try and feed Hunter Dickinson again. Zeke Mayo's been a great outside shooter, so it's just kind of seeing what happens type of thing. I know I'm excited for the game because I think it should be, like you said, a close one for sure.
Yeah.
But, if I were to probably guess right now, I'd probably say close loss, like you said, just because it's in one of the hardest places to play in college basketball.
Yeah, one of the things that I did like when they played the first time was the fact that Iowa State was able to hold Hunter Dickinson in check. He wasn't really able to do a whole lot, and I know that he kind of finished with a lot of fouls, but a lot of those were towards the end of the game when it was a little bit out of hand and they were just kind of scrapping for things. So I think Iowa State overall did as good of a job as they could have in limiting Dickinson in that one. I felt like that might have just made him hungrier for this upcoming game of like, okay, they stopped me once, I'm not going to have that happen again. So that could be something to watch out for. Again, it's going to be a tough game. So I guess what we'll have to do is just wait and see for it to turn out.
Yeah, first we got Kansas State, and then having to travel to Lawrence, so only time will tell what happens.
Yep, we got a big week of Big 12 games on both the men's and women's side. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Daily Dish Podcast. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And we will see you next week after these games. See you later.